Petrol supply, reserve fuel tankers on the road from Wednesday, says Kwarteng. The government's reserve tanker fleet will be on the road on Wednesday afternoon to boost fuel deliveries, the business secretary has said. He has also said soldiers would be delivering fuel in the coming days. There are signs the situation at petrol stations has begun to improve with more stations getting fuel, he said, after days of long queues. Mr. Kwarteng admitted the situation had been difficult but denied there was a crisis in UK fuel supplies. Ministers have decided to deploy troops to drive tankers in the next couple of days, he said, in addition to the civilians driving them from Wednesday. Some 150 military drivers are ready to drive the fuel tankers, with another 150 Army personnel ready to support them. The Petrol Retailers Association, PRA, said there were encouraging signs the pressure was starting to ease at the pumps, with forecourts taking further fuel deliveries. The PRA, which represents nearly 5,500 of the UK's 8,000 stations, said 27% of sites had run out of fuel on Wednesday, compared with two-thirds being without on Sunday. Brian Matterson, PRA chairman, told BBC News that while there were less queues, and panic buying, there was still unusually heavy demand. He said less queues, and panic buying petrol station groups were reporting fewer dry sites than on Tuesday. On Tuesday, speaking for the first time since issues began, Prime Minister Boris Johnson also sought to reassure drivers about supplies, saying that people should be confident to go about their business. He said he was not seeking to prioritise essential workers at pumps because things were stabilising. Sir Keir Starmer used his first in-person conference speech as Labour leader on Wednesday to criticise the government's handling of fuel supply issues. One hospice in Oldham has put out an appeal for petrol, saying its staff were struggling to fill up their vehicles. Nurse Lindsay Harper, lead nurse for community service at Dr. Kershaw's hospice, said there was an element of sheer panic over the situation. The hospice gives end-of-life care to 11 patients in their own homes, and staff vehicles need constant refills of unleaded petrol. It wants filling stations to give its staff priority access and is also asking the public for donations. Ms. Harper said, "We need to prioritize those patients, we need to get to those patients as soon as we can." There have also been concerns voiced by other care organisations that vulnerable service users could be left without their usual help if the crisis does not ease. Emma Vogelman, who lives in South Cambridgeshire, said that, without the 24-hour help from her team of 5 carers, her situation is life-threatening. Care assistant Jenny Irons, who works in Clacton, Essex, with end-of-life patients, said it was frustrating to see people top up their cars, then get out 4 or 5 jerry cans to fill up those too. James Spencer, managing director at fuel supplier Portland Fuel, said the UK was over the worst of the situation and sending in the army would generate more panic. Under normal circumstances, supply can easily meet demand, he told BBC Radio 4's Today programme. He added that now many people had filled up their tanks, there might be a dip in demand. Fuel supplies are plentiful at refineries, but a shortage of tanker drivers caused problems with deliveries to a small number of filling stations last week. Reports of pumps running dry at some garages then subsequently led to a surge in demand. Sainsbury's, which has 315 filling stations, said it was still experiencing high demand for fuel and that experiencing high demand for fuel. A hypothetical analysis by BBC Two's Newsnight estimated that it would take about 8 days for every vehicle in the UK to fill up under current higher levels of demand. But the Times reported industry sources as saying disruption could continue for weeks because of the time it will take to restock petrol stations. And Steve McNamara, General Secretary of the Licensed Taxi Driver Association, said that the situation was not getting better, with 25% to 30% of his members unable to work on Tuesday because they could not get fuel. Meanwhile, car use in Britain this week fell to its lowest level for a working Monday since 12 July, suggesting some drivers have reduced the amount they are driving due to fuel supply issues. The UK is estimated to be short of about 100,000 lorry drivers, causing problems for a range of industries, including food suppliers and supermarkets, in recent months. Mr. Johnson said panic buying of petrol had followed a slightly misleading account of the shortages of lorry drivers, which caused and slightly misleading. The government was taking action to ensure there were enough deliveries in all industries during the run-up to Christmas, he added. How have you been affected by the fuel crisis? Fuel crisis starting to ease, Johnson says. Army put on standby to ease fuel crisis. No fuel shortage, says Transport Secretary. Police warning after 100 calls over fuel queues. Fuel demand should be normal again soon. Industry.